I was trained as an anthropologist. And anthropologists are interested partly in humans and in how and why we are the way we are. And one of the distinctive features of humans is how intensely social we are. And one of the questions then is, what are the benefits of being social? Being social is not the default case for most mammals. There are a lot of mammals who live their lives more or less on their own. Females meet males, they mate, and then they separate. And then females will rear their offspring alone, and males will spend most of their time alone. So being social is an adaptation. And the question is, what are the advantages of being social for humans and other closely related primates? And the benefits, we think, are a combination of being safer from predators. So when you're in a group, there's just more eyes looking around, trying to see if there's a predator around. There are opportunities for cooperation. So if you are a whale and you need to make a deep dive to hunt for prey, and you have a small calf who's not capable of making that dive, it's really helpful to have another female nearby who will look after your calf while you make your dive, right? So if you have an itch in a place you can't reach to scratch, it's really nice to have somebody else around who can do that for you. So there's lots of ways in which we can benefit from living in groups. Also, we can do things like share information. That's probably hugely important for humans. And it may also be important for other animals. You may not have visited a particular water hole or know that a particular area is likely to have food, but your grandmother might. So there are many ways in which living in groups can be beneficial if you can solve one basic problem, which is competition. I've been studying baboons, mostly females, for most of my academic career. And I've spent hundreds of hours watching females groom one another. And it looks nice. It looks like they feel the way we feel when we get a good massage. It's relaxing, it's calming, and they take turns giving and getting groomed. And we think this must be important to them in some ways. But from watching females for a long time and analyzing lots and lots of data, I also realized that some females are more social than others. They're more likely to groom others. They get more grooming than others. They're more likely to seek out company. And then there's some females who are loners. You know, everybody's sitting around grooming, and Slinky is alone underneath a bush taking a nap. And our general ideas about watching and understanding the behavior of other animals is that their behavior is shaped by natural selection so that they're more successful in reproducing and they leave more descendants. So we see some animals doing a lot of some things like grooming. And then we see other animals who are much less involved. And we sort of wonder why there is this variation, and does it really matter to the females? We think it looks good to be a female that is involved in a lot of social relationships, getting groomed all the time. Looks fun, looks nice. But what about the females that don't behave this way? And we realized that we actually were in a position to think about that because we had been collecting data over long periods of time, not just on females' behavior, but also on their reproduction. So by watching these animals over long periods of time, we knew that certain females had lots of offspring that survived weaning, and other females hadn't. And we think that being able to produce lots of infants that survive to reproductive age themselves is adaptive. It enhances the fitness of females. So we thought that we ought to be able to link up all of the data on social behavior that we've been collecting with this data on reproductive success. So we use this long-term data from a project I've been running in East Africa for decades to see if we could detect and affect a relationship between female social behavior, say how much they groomed, how much time they spent near one another, with their fitness, with how well their kids did, or, as it turned out, even more important, how long females themselves lived. Because it turns out one of the most important factors in how successful females are is just how long they manage to live. And in this species, females can live up to their mid-20s. So some females live into their mid-20s, not many, but some. But some females don't live that long. And when we did the analyses, we learned that females who were more social, who had been involved in more close social relationships over the course of their lives, live longer than other females did. And this was big news. And it was big news because for a couple of reasons. One reason is that it seemed remarkably similar to what we know about humans. Because we know for a long time that social connections are an important element of well-being. We know this from lots of epidemiological data, and we also know it from our own experience during COVID. We need these relationships in a whole bunch of ways. So these kinds of findings were really interesting because it seemed likely that they exposed the long phylogenetic history of close relationships for humans. One is I'm really very nosy, and I always want to know what's going on with people. You know, I want to know what motivates them. And the baboons are enough like us that they generate this curiosity. Why are they doing that? What's going on in their funny little heads? Right? So I'm just obsessed with trying to understand why they behave the way they do. And so it's sort of endlessly interesting. When you watch a group of baboons, I mean, you know these individuals, you've known them for years, you know their mothers, you know, you see a kid and you think, oh, that looks just like her mother at this age. I mean, it's just really quite remarkable that you have this history with the animals. And I am always curious about what makes them tick. And I mean, I kind of do the same thing with people. I'm interested in what motivates people to behave the way they do. And I think it's just this curiosity and affection. I mean, these guys, I get really attached to them. And you just want to know.